You think you are free. You look at your life and you see choices. You choose where to bank, which gas station to use, which phone to buy, and which medicine to take. You believe that the free market is a democracy where your dollar is your vote. But that is the greatest illusion of the modern age. What if I told you that the invisible architecture of your daily life was designed over a century ago? What if the way you work, the way you spend, and even the way you think about money was decided by a man who has been dead since 1937? This man built a cage so perfect, so transparent, that you don't even realize you are standing inside it right now. We are taught that monopolies are illegal. We are told that if a company gets too powerful, the government steps in to break it up. But that is a lie. The greatest monopoly in history didn't die. It evolved. It turned into a ghost. A blueprint that controls the gasoline in your car, the algorithm on your screen, and the interest rate on your credit card. Today, we are going to peel back the layers of history to find the source code of the modern economy. We are going to uncover the true story of John D. Rockefeller, not the sanitized version you learned in school, but the brutal reality of how he conquered the world, how he faked his own defeat, and how he built a system of control that is more powerful today than it was in 1890. This is the story of the cage you were born into. And once you see the bars, you will never look at the world the same way again. To understand the trap, we first have to understand the chaos that existed before it. We have to go back to 1859, Titusville, Pennsylvania. This was the moment the world changed. T. Hayes struck oil. Before this moment, the world was dark. When the sun went down, life stopped. But suddenly, black gold gushed out of the Pennsylvania mud. It triggered a madness that makes the modern crypto craze look like a tea party. It was chaos. Thousands of prospectors rushed into the valley. Towns sprang up overnight, filled with mud, oil, whiskey, and greed. It was the Wild West of capitalism. Men would make a fortune in a week and lose it all in a game of cards. The price of oil was volatile. 1 week a barrel was worth $20. The next week, it was worth 10 cents because everyone had overproduced. To the average person, this looked like opportunity. It looked like freedom. But to a young 20-year-old bookkeeper watching from Cleveland, Ohio, it didn't look like opportunity. It looked like hell. His name was John Davison Rockefeller. And to understand his ambition, you have to understand his bloodline. His father, William Big Bill Rockefeller, was a traveling con man. He called himself a doctor, but he was a snake oil salesman who sold fake cancer cures and ran from the law. He once bragged, "I cheat my boys every chance I get. I want to make him sharp." John grew up watching his father manipulate the world, while his deeply religious mother taught him discipline and silence. This combination created a unique psychological profile. John Rockefeller was cold, calculating, and obsessed with order. He looked at the oil rush, and he didn't see a booming industry. He saw waste. He saw inefficiency. He saw stupid men competing for scraps, drilling holes that might be dry, driving the price down to zero. He believed, with a religious conviction, that competition was a sin. To him, competition meant duplication. It meant disorder. He believed God had given him a gift to bring order to this chaos. And his version of order was simple: total control. While others rushed to drill for oil, a risky gamble where you could lose everything, Rockefeller looked at the bottleneck. He realized that the crude oil itself was useless until it was refined into kerosene for lamps. If you control the refining, you control the oil, no matter who drills it. In 1863, he invested in his first refinery. He didn't want to be a player in the game. He wanted to own the casino. He began with a strategy that is now the cornerstone of companies like Amazon and Apple. It is called vertical integration. Most refiners just refine. They paid someone else for barrels. They paid someone else for wagons. They paid railroads to ship the oil. Rockefeller looked at this list of expenses and saw weakness. He decided to eliminate the middleman entirely. He built his own cooperage to make barrels. He bought his own forest to get the white oak timber. He bought his own kilns to dry the wood. While his competitors paid $2.50 for a barrel, Rockefeller made his for 96 cents. He didn't stop there. He hired his own plumbers. He built his own wagons. He was obsessed with efficiency. He famously once asked a factory manager if they could use 39 drops of solder to seal a can instead of 40. They tested it. 39 worked. That one drop saved him a fortune over millions of cans. This gave him a weapon his competitors didn't have. He could lower his prices below the cost of production and still make a profit. But efficiency was just a shield. He needed a sword. And that sword was the railroads. This is where the story turns from business to conspiracy. Because Rockefeller shipped so much oil, he went to the railroad owners, powerful men like Vanderbilt, and demanded a secret deal. He said, "I will give you guaranteed volume, every day, full trains. But in exchange, you will give me a massive rebate on shipping costs." But here is the twist. He didn't just ask for a discount for himself. He demanded that the railroads charge his competitors more and then pay that extra money directly to him. Think about how insane that is. If you were a competitor trying to ship oil, not only did you pay double what Rockefeller paid, but part of your payment actually went into Rockefeller's pocket. You were subsidizing the man who was trying to kill you. The game was rigged, and nobody else even knew the rules. Armed with this secret weapon, Rockefeller moved to the next phase, horizontal consolidation. In 1872, he executed an operation known to history as the Cleveland Massacre. It took only 3 months. Rockefeller approached the 26 competing refineries in Cleveland. His pitch was terrifyingly calm. He would open his books, show them his low costs, and say, "The market is crashing. You cannot compete. Sell your refinery to me at a fair price. Take stock in my company, and you will be rich. Refuse, and I will crush you." Some accepted immediately. They saw the writing on the wall. Those who refused found themselves in a nightmare. Rockefeller dropped the price of kerosene in their specific neighborhoods until it was cheaper than water. He operated at a loss, funded by his massive profits from other areas. The competitors bled cash. When they were on the brink of bankruptcy, Rockefeller would step in and buy their ruined factories for pennies on the dollar. By the end of those 3 months, Rockefeller controlled 25 of the 26 refineries in Cleveland. He controlled the bottleneck. From there, he marched across America. Pittsburgh, Philadelphia, New York. The strategy was always the same. Buy or die. Join the system, or be erased by it. By 1880, John D. Rockefeller controlled 90% of all oil refined in the United States. He controlled the light of the world. Before electricity, kerosene was how people saw in the dark. Rockefeller didn't just own a company. He owned the night. He had created the Standard Oil Company. It was the first true industrial monopoly. But with total dominance came a new problem. The public was waking up. They saw a monster. Rockefeller was becoming the most hated man in America. He was the archetype of the robber baron. The press portrayed him as an octopus, its tentacles strangling Congress, the railroads, and the consumer. The states began to fight back. Laws were passed to stop companies in one state from owning companies in another. This should have stopped Standard Oil in its tracks. But Rockefeller's genius wasn't just in oil. It was in legal engineering. In 1882, his lawyers invented a new concept, the trust. Here is how it worked. Rockefeller and his associates didn't technically own the companies in other states. Instead, the stockholders of all those dozens of companies handed over their shares to a group of 9 trustees led by Rockefeller. In exchange, they got trust certificates. The trustees controlled everything. They set the prices. They set the production quotas. They closed down inefficient plants. It was a workaround that rendered state laws useless. It was the first time a corporation truly transcended the law. But the pressure kept building. In 1890, the U.S. government passed the Sherman Antitrust Act, specifically designed to slay the Standard Oil dragon. And then, a journalist named Ida Tarbell entered the scene. She was the daughter of an oil man who had been destroyed by Rockefeller during the Cleveland Massacre. She spent years digging through documents, court records, and interviews. In 1904, she published a history of the Standard Oil Company. It was a masterpiece of investigative journalism. It exposed the secret rebates, the spying, the ruthlessness. It turned public opinion into a weapon. The government could no longer look away. In 1911, the Supreme Court of the United States delivered the final blow. They ruled that Standard Oil was an illegal monopoly. They ordered it to be broken up into 34 separate companies. The public cheered. The monster was slain. Democracy had won. Or so they thought. This brings us to the greatest irony in financial history. The breakup of Standard Oil didn't destroy Rockefeller's power. It multiplied it. When the judge's gavel fell, Standard Oil was split into 34 baby standards. You might recognize their names today. Standard Oil of New Jersey became Exxon. Standard Oil of New York became Mobil. Standard Oil of California became Chevron. Standard Oil of Indiana became Amoco. Here is the trick. The court ordered the company to break up, but it distributed the shares of the new companies to the existing stockholders. Rockefeller owned 25% of Standard Oil. So the next morning, he owned 25% of Exxon, 25% of Mobil, 25% of Chevron, and so on. Before the breakup, the market value of Standard Oil was suppressed because of the fear of litigation. Once the companies were free, Wall Street realized their true value. They began to trade independently. They became more efficient. Their stock prices exploded. Rockefeller's net worth didn't go down. It tripled. He became the richest man in modern history. At his peak, his wealth was equal to 2% of the entire U.S. economy. To put that in perspective, that would be nearly $400 billion today. That is more than Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos combined. The punishment made him a god. But the fallout wasn't just financial. It was structural. Rockefeller realized that being the hated monopolist was bad for business. He needed a new image. He needed to buy legitimacy. He turned to his final innovation, philanthropy. He created the Rockefeller Foundation. He donated hundreds of millions of dollars to medicine, education, and science. He effectively created the modern system of medical research. Now, this sounds good, right? Curing hookworm, funding universities. But look closer. By funding the universities and the medical boards, the foundation had a say in what was taught and what was researched. In the early 20th century, there were many types of doctors: homeopaths, naturopaths, herbalists. The Rockefeller Foundation commissioned the Flexner Report, which standardized medical education. It pushed medicine toward a specific model, a model based on pharmaceutical drugs, drugs that could be patented, drugs that were often derived from petrochemicals, oil. He didn't just whitewash his image. He molded society to fit his business interests. He reshaped the education system to produce obedient workers, not critical thinkers. He created a system where the public loved him for giving back a fraction of what he had taken. So, why did the breakup fail? Why did the Sherman Antitrust Act fail? It failed because the regulators were fighting the last war. They were trying to break up a physical structure, but they missed the network. Even though the 34 companies were technically separate, they were owned by the same families. They didn't compete. They cooperated. They shared pipelines. They respected each other's territories. It was a monopoly in everything but name. Over the decades, the government tried to regulate these giants. But every time they passed a law, the corporations adapted. When they couldn't use trusts, they used holding companies. When they couldn't bribe politicians directly, they created lobbying firms. When taxes got too high, they used foundations to shield their wealth tax-free while retaining control over the capital. Rockefeller taught big business a crucial lesson. Don't fight the government, capture it. Incorporate the state into your business model. Now, let's fast forward to today. You might be thinking, that's ancient history. We have technology now. We have the internet. Look closely. The Rockefeller blueprint is the operating system of the 21st century. Look at Amazon. Jeff Bezos didn't just build a store. He built the infrastructure. Amazon Web Services, AWS, powers a huge chunk of the internet. Even Amazon's competitors, like Netflix, pay Amazon to host their movies. That is the Rockefeller strategy. Control the railroad, and you control the passengers. Amazon uses the profits from AWS to subsidize its retail prices, crushing small businesses, just like Rockefeller crushed the Cleveland refiners. They operate at a loss to kill the competition, and then they own the market. Look at Google. Google controls over 90% of search traffic. That is a higher market share than Standard Oil ever had. They buy up competitors like YouTube, Waze, and DoubleClick before they can become threats. That is horizontal consolidation. And because their product is free, antitrust laws struggle to touch them, even though they extract value from your data. They are the new gatekeepers of information, just as Rockefeller was the gatekeeper of energy. Look at the pharmaceutical industry. Big Pharma is the direct descendant of the petrochemical pharmaceutical model Rockefeller funded. They use the same regulatory capture. They fund the agencies that regulate them. The FDA receives a massive portion of its budget from fees paid by the pharmaceutical companies it is supposed to police. They use patents to create temporary monopolies, keeping prices artificially high, just as the trust did. Look at the banking system. In the past, there were dozens of major banks. Today, 4 banks. J.P. Morgan Chase, Bank of America, Wells Fargo, and Citi. They dominate the financial system. They are too big to fail. That is the trust structure, reborn. And what about those 34 baby standards? Exxon and Mobil merged back together in 1999 to form ExxonMobil. Chevron bought Texaco. Amoco was bought by BP. The pieces have come back together. The system heals itself. You are living in a world of illusion. You see different logos on the shelf, but the money flows into the same few pockets. You are walking through a maze designed by a man who died almost a century ago. The methods haven't changed. Only the technology has. So, where does this leave us? We have peeled back the layers. We have seen the origins, the rise, the fake fall, and the modern reincarnation of the Rockefeller system. Here are the 3 things you need to take away from this story. Number 1. Efficiency is the enemy of choice. The system argues that consolidation is good because it lowers prices and increases convenience. Amazon is fast. Google is accurate. Standard Oil kerosene was cheap. But the price you pay for that efficiency is control. When one entity controls the supply chain, you don't have freedom. You have permission. You are dependent on the monopolist for your survival. Number 2. The breakup is a myth. Governments rarely destroy power. They only rearrange it. When a monopoly is broken, the underlying capital and connections remain. Often, the cure just makes the virus stronger and harder to track. Do not expect legislation to save you from corporate control. The laws are often written by the very people they are supposed to constrain. Number 3. The system is designed to be invisible. Rockefeller's greatest trick wasn't the oil monopoly. It was the philanthropic complex. By funding education, medicine, and culture, he ensured that the system protects itself. We are trained to see these billionaires as job creators or philanthropists rather than kings of a feudal system. We defend the very people who are extracting our wealth. We are entering a new phase. The new oil is data. The new railroads are cloud servers. The new kerosene is artificial intelligence. The stakes are no longer just about the money in your pocket. They are about the thoughts in your head and the choices you make. The Rockefeller blueprint is being applied to the digital world right now. And this time, the cage isn't made of steel bars or oil pipelines. It is digital. It is algorithmic. And it is much, much harder to see. But there is one thing Rockefeller couldn't control: your awareness. The first step to escaping the cage is knowing that you are in one. If you want to understand more about the hidden history of money, power, and the systems that govern your life, you need to be informed. You need to question the narrative. I want you to do 2 things. First, look at the products you buy this week and trace them back to their parent companies. You will be shocked at how few roads there really are. You will see the web of ownership that connects your food, your media, and your money. Second, if you found value in this investigation, if you want to see more content that digs deep into the reality of the economy, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. We are going to continue exposing the financial history they didn't teach you in school. Don't just be a consumer. Be an observer. Rockefeller is dead, but his ghost is in the machine. I'll see you in the next investigation.